Imagine trusting a product used on babies for generations, only to discover it might contain a deadly poison. This is the shocking story of Johnson & Johnson's massive baby powder scandal, a tale of greed, corporate maneuvering, and the devastating consequences for families just like yours. For years, while you used that everyday product, something dangerous was hidden in that white powder. This powder was made of talc, a soft mineral mined in several places on Earth, and it might have been mixed with asbestos in the mining process. Asbestos is a known carcinogen, which means something that causes cancer in some form. Millions used it, now thousands are fighting terrible cancers that take years to show up. What links a cold hospital room, the quiet worry of your family nearby, to a mom gently using baby powder on her little one? A huge company, Johnson & Johnson. For generations, Johnson & Johnson's baby powder was a staple in millions of homes. Johnson & Johnson, the name evokes images of clean bandages, a tear-free shampoo, and that iconic baby powder. Founded in 1886, this American multinational grew from humble beginnings into a massive corporation, a cornerstone of households worldwide. Just how massive have they become? Their market value has recently hovered between $350 and $400 billion. Their annual sales reached an astounding $80 billion in the past years. For many, Johnson & Johnson was synonymous with trust, a company whose products were staples in their daily lives. But there's a much darker story underneath the brand, a decades-long trail of lawsuits and accusations that it betrayed the public's trust. At the heart of this scandal is their once beloved baby powder, a product made from talc, a soft mineral sought for its moisture-absorbing properties. But a growing body of evidence and numerous legal battles points that this powder may have been contaminated with a deadly substance, asbestos. Asbestos, a known carcinogen, is a material whose microscopic fibers can cause devastating illnesses, like mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer in a thin layer of tissue that covers many internal organs, developing changes in the organ's DNA. The data from the Mesothelioma Center, a non-profit organization, shows that on average, patients live 12 to 21 months after diagnosis, and approximately 14% survive 5 years or longer. Its link to ovarian cancer has also been a central point in the unfolding legal drama. The Mayo Clinic, a respected medical body, explains that asbestos exposure can take 10 to 40 years to show symptoms, meaning families are only now discovering the damage done long ago. The story of Johnson & Johnson's baby powder is deeply intertwined with the company's rise. Introduced to the world in 1894, it quickly became a signature product, a symbol of baby care and feminine hygiene. Its soft, powdery texture was marketed as a gentle solution for preventing diaper rash and providing all-day freshness. But this seemingly harmless product is allegedly the source for a decades-long health crisis. While talc in its pure form is generally considered safe, the problem lies in its mining. Talc deposits are often found in close proximity to asbestos, a naturally occurring mineral whose thin, needle-like fibers are incredibly dangerous if inhaled or ingested. If proper precautions aren't taken during mining and processing, cross-contamination can easily occur. And based on legal filings and data from the Mesothelioma Center, that seems to be exactly what happened with Johnson & Johnson's talc. Reuters' investigation in 2018 found records of contaminated Johnson & Johnson talc as early as the 1950s. These records show that chemical consulting labs hired by Johnson & Johnson themselves reported finding microscopic contaminants described as needle-like. In the end, this was asbestos. It's a chilling thought. For decades, families trusted this product, while Johnson & Johnson may have known it was tainted with something that could kill. The long latency period of asbestos-related diseases, sometimes decades based on various sources, including the Mesothelioma Center, further complicates the issue. Think about that. The very cancers emerging now might be the exposure from 10, 30, or 50 years ago, making it a nightmare to pinpoint the cause. The emotional toll on the victims and their families is immense. Picture being told you have a deadly cancer, then realizing it might have come from something you used on your skin for years. The sense of betrayal, the anger at a company that put profit before people, the fear for the future. These are the raw emotions fueling the tens of thousands of lawsuits currently against Johnson & Johnson. In courtrooms across the United States, women and their families have recounted stories of long-term baby powder use, followed by devastating cancer diagnoses. They presented evidence, including internal company documents and scientific studies, attempting to link their illnesses to the asbestos contamination in Johnson & Johnson's talc, and in some cases they have prevailed. In a CNN Health article of a landmark 2017 case in Los Angeles, a jury awarded one woman $70 million in compensatory damages. Compensatory damages is related to medical bills and other costs suffered by the victim, and a staggering $347 million in punitive damages towards the company, basically the amount meant to punish the company. But even with wins like that, you can't help but wonder, how many other families are out there not knowing if this powder they used is going to hurt them someday? Faced with a mounting tide of lawsuits and damaging revelations, Johnson & Johnson has consistently denied that their talc products cause cancer and maintained that their modern powder is safe. They have spent vast sums on legal defense, deploying teams of lawyers to argue their case and challenge the scientific evidence presented. Still, with thousands of lawsuits filed and some big payouts already made, it's getting harder for the company to stick to that defense. The financial implications are enormous. Johnson & Johnson set aside $3.9 billion in 2021 alone to cover expenses related to the talc lawsuits, according to Reuters, including a $2.1 billion settlement with 22 cancer victims. With tens of thousands more cases pending, the potential financial burden could be catastrophic. With its future on the line, Johnson & Johnson used a controversial legal trick known as the Texas two-step, a strategy that involves a company creating a new smaller company, and this smaller company of Johnson & Johnson was called LTL Management, and it was created to absorb the bulk of its money losses in the lawsuits. The next step is to have that newly created smaller company file for bankruptcy, a legal process when a company can't pay its debts and shuts down operations. Critics argue that this is a strategic move to protect the big company, Johnson & Johnson's assets, by isolating the lawsuits in a financially weaker smaller company. By isolating the liabilities in a separate, financially weaker company, the hope was to limit the financial damage to the parent company, in this case Johnson & Johnson. Adding another layer of complexity, Johnson & Johnson announced plans in 2021 to split the company into two separate entities, one focusing on consumer health products, including the talc lawsuits, and the other on pharmaceuticals and medical devices. While Johnson & Johnson said this was about focus and innovation, many saw it as a way to shield their pharma business from the exploding legal costs tied to talc. The unfolding story reveals a contrast between Johnson & Johnson's public image as a caring, family-oriented company and the aggressive legal and financial tactics they have employed to manage the fallout from the talc scandal. Protecting profits and keeping shareholders happy seem more important than facing victims and making things right. The talc powder scandal is not the only controversy that has cast a shadow over Johnson & Johnson's long history. The opioid lawsuits of the late 2010s against Big Pharma showed how companies like Johnson & Johnson pushed opioids into the public. Opioids are a legal class of pain medications that can result in addiction due to their strength. Johnson & Johnson and other companies in the opioid lawsuits downplayed how addictive they were, as well as exaggerating the benefits. Disturbingly, opioid wholesalers continued large shipments despite red flags. Some executives showed lack of empathy for those addicted. Evidence also suggested Johnson & Johnson's role in supplying key ingredients. All of this helped fuel the opioid epidemic, which ended in a $26 billion settlement, but the damage is still being counted. Johnson & Johnson faced a major controversy over the antipsychotic pill Risperdal, a medication used to treat certain mental health conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and some symptoms of autism. According to the USA Today report, they paid over $2.2 billion to settle claims of illegal off-label marketing. This refers to the practice of promoting a drug for uses not approved by regulatory agencies. In Johnson & Johnson's case, this included marketing Risperdal to the elderly and children. The Justice Department stated Johnson & Johnson prioritized profits over patient well-being, downplaying risks despite FDA warnings about stroke in the elderly and hormone issues in children. The settlement included criminal fines and civil payments alongside required changes in marketing practices. This comes along with a $70 million foreign bribery case reported by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission in 2011. The SEC, the financial market regulator in the United States, holding public companies like Johnson & Johnson accountable, found that Johnson & Johnson's subsidiaries, at least since 1998, allegedly bribed public doctors in Greece, Poland, and Romania and paid kickbacks in Iraq to illegally obtain business. Johnson & Johnson faced a public health crisis in 1982 by recalling all 31 million bottles of Tylenol after the Chicago Tylenol deaths due to cyanide poisoning, a tragic incident where some pills were deliberately laced with a deadly poison during the production of the Tylenol pain reliever. This earlier action was applauded as a gold standard in corporate crisis management, where the company showed exceptional speed in handling the public health emergency. However, even this great action by Johnson & Johnson does not excuse the company from the ongoing talc powder scandal and the others mentioned. The reality is, Johnson & Johnson has at times prioritized profits and legal protection over the well-being of the people who use their products. This story isn't just about a powder, it's about how greed can quietly ruin lives, including for people just like us. For years, the danger was pushed aside, and keeping profits high seemed more important than keeping people safe. This doesn't look like a mistake. It looks like a decision made knowingly, as more and more claims suggest. All the legal moves and dodges to protect billions, while lives were at risk, show just how broken the system can be. So was this a case of gross negligence or unethical greed? The answer for thousands of families has been a devastating reality. Creating videos that tackle important and sometimes sensitive topics like this requires the right atmosphere, and that's where Epidemic Sound comes in. You've got powerful stories to tell, crucial information to share. The last thing you'll need is generic, distracting audio that pulls your audience away from your message or lands you in copyright trouble. Forget the headache of complicated licensing and the fear of copyright strikes. With Epidemic Sound, it's all crystal clear and completely covered. This isn't just about background noise, it's about unlocking your creative flow and delivering your message with confidence, knowing your audio is as professional and impactful as your content. Get instant access to a universe of high-quality, royalty-free music and sound effects all at your fingertips. Epidemic Sound boasts a staggering library, curated to provide the perfect sonic backdrop for any moment. Need to build suspense that has viewers on the edge of their seats? Want impactful sound design that punctuates your points with authority? Ready to transform your videos from informative to immersive? Click the exclusive link in the description below to explore the limitless possibilities of Epidemic Sound's massive music and sound effects catalog. Don't just enhance your videos, ignite them. Unlock Epidemic Sound's universe and elevate your storytelling right now through the link below. Want more videos that explain what's really going on in the world of business? Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're always in the loop. Thanks again for showing love on our last video, and our favorite comment from that one goes to